now, Bitcoin is sitting in a position that looks very familiar when you're comparing the weekly line chart for Bitcoin against the US dollar index. What we see during every bull cycle is that the US dollar index is in a major falling wedge pattern. And normally, as the US dollar index enters that second half of the pattern, Bitcoin is near the all-time high and becoming parabolic. And that is what we're seeing right now for Bitcoin. And also, Bitcoin bull markets are almost always lined up with US elections. These are election years, and we are entering another election year, and the stock market is usually breaking into new all-time highs, and that very much resembles what we're seeing right now. It looks like everything's set to break the all-time high. In the last video on this channel, I discussed my exact Bitcoin price prediction moving into the halving, and what we discussed is that it was likely for Bitcoin to actually continue up from here, which we are doing now, and push up towards this weekly candle close cluster from 2021. This area likely to act as pretty big resistance, though nothing that Bitcoin can't handle. Maybe some resistance, a dip into the halving before breaking the all-time high. And then 2 days ago, I made this post talking about Bitcoin continuation loading. And we are now actually playing this out. Demand increasing with higher lows, selling interest sort of flattened out. And then today we broke this resistance. So this continuation did occur. And today I posted this chart on Twitter talking about the RSI setup. If you look at the RSI at the bottom of the screen, the last time we had this RSI breakout of the RSI downtrend line, that sent us up about 17% to that next high there. And we are getting the same type of RSI breakout above the downtrend line. If we repeated that same type of 17% move, it would bring us up to about 52,500. That's the target for this RSI breakout. And one of the really interesting things about that target is that it is also the target of the largest falling wedge in Bitcoin history. And this is what we were talking about for all this year. I remember early on this year when we were sitting down here, January, February, March, we were talking about this textbook breakout target, and people of course were saying that, Kev, you're just a moon boy, that'll never happen, Bitcoin's going to 10K, like all this stuff. And it's funny to see that we are actually right near that target. Does that mean that Bitcoin has to stop here? No, it doesn't mean that. We are, possibly about to get an ETF approval, and the halving event is coming up. So we may see Bitcoin run up to this target. It could bring in some shorter term resistance, but I think ultimately the real target here may actually be this weekly candle close cluster from 2021, as we discussed in my last video. And the masses, like I said, are going to want to be fully invested before the halving, which could put a temporary cap on the price growth. If the crowd at that moment is basically fully invested, then when the halving comes around, it opens up a good opportunity for bigger players to sort of wash out those late longs, open up the liquidity in the market, for them to get more Bitcoin, one final dip buy zone below the all-time high, before then maybe running after the halving to new all-time highs post-halving. This is currently my sort of more likely scenario. This is what I think is more likely, for me at least. Because again, one, the crowd's gonna wanna be fully invested before the halving. Two, if we're dipping going into the halving, the crowd's gonna get very, very skeptical and a little bit spooked, which might actually open up more liquidity, people selling, for the larger players to get the amount of Bitcoin that they want before breaking into new all-time highs. I mean, you could only imagine what people are going to say if we dip into the halving. They're going to say, oh, it's a scam, it's over, even though the price is going to be at a really high level. People just are very irrational, and everyone's going to say, oh, the halving was a scam. See, we're not pumping for the halving. And then, right after the halving, we just go run to new all-time highs against the crowd's expectation. And all of this stuff that I'm talking about is still like short term, right? I mean, this is really nothing. It's kind of just noise in the middle of a major trend. This chart, in my opinion, makes things very clear. And that is, as long as the US dollar index is just continuing to make lower highs, lower lows, Bitcoin is going to be able to go parabolic and break the all-time high, right? Despite the little noise, little swings I'm talking about right here. I mean, ultimately, it doesn't mean anything. Bitcoin is likely going to see a major breakout to new all-time highs this year. Because, guys, the most parabolic part of the trend happens in a pretty short period of time. it's almost like half a year. Like we're almost halfway into 2017, Bitcoin breaks its all-time high and then runs to that 20K level. Same thing here. We're coming into the end of 2020, Bitcoin breaks the all-time high, runs to 65. And then right here, you know, if the US dollar index is coming down, and this might be sort of the major part of the bull market. The major part of the bull market is a very small section of time. There's not much time. And so it may be from here till like the end of the year, as the DXY starts to level out of this falling wedge. From like here to the end of the year, guys, that might be really the best part of the bull run. And a lot of people are still, you know, considering getting into crypto. I'm sure you guys have had calls from your friends asking about crypto, but it hasn't really been like super hype yet. And so the masses always come in at the wrong time. And so if we're breaking all-time high, and you know, it's going into the second half of this year, I think a lot of people are going to be, you know, once again, screwing up by buying in too late, right? I think that we really have just this year is going to be the most bullish part of the bull market. I'm not saying that we're going to top this year. I'm saying that we're going to see the most bullish part this year, and maybe, you know, we see a dip there and we bounce up to a slightly higher high in 2025, whatever, right? But I'm saying the meat of the move, the best part of the bull market is coming right now. Right now, this year is going to be the best portion of the bull market. In 2025 is going to be the zone where you want to be scaling out of the market, right? So don't take it for granted if you start making a lot of gains this year. Don't take it for granted. It's always a small window of time, right? It's a small window, guys, so don't squander it. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hit the like button, subscribe to this channel, join the Patreon if you want to see what other things I'm buying altcoins, or, you know, just get my opinion on a daily basis. Communicate with me directly in the chat rooms. Join the Patreon, link below, and also sign up for Kraken Pro. The link for this is below as well. And I'll see you guys in the next video.